Hello, everyone. This is Raise Your Voice as part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Brett Rutherford, joined as always by my co host, Darby Robinson, for our first episode of 2024. We are live on X at D-Rays Bay. We are live on YouTube at Raise Your Voice Pod. So make sure, if you're following along on YouTube, to drop a like on this video and subscribe. Turn on those notifications so you know exactly when we go live. First off, Darby, Happy New Year. I know we're like 2 weeks into the new year, but with the traveling that we had going on and kind of getting back into the swing of things, this is the first time we were able to sit down and record.
Yeah. Happy New Year, Brett. We've both been on the road doing some fun travel plans. So and very quickly into the new year, a lot of Rays news has happened. So it's nice to get back on the pod and catch up on quite a busy first 2 weeks of 2024.
So we talk about like a lot in the off season. I feel like the key word, if you did like a word bubble or a word chart for this off season, the one you hear from writers and from media personalities is domino. Like you're waiting for this domino to fall. It was Shohei Ohtani, and then it's Yamamoto, but that really didn't seem to be true because you've still got players like Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell on the free agent market. For the Rays, one of their dominoes was Tyler Glasnow. And he was traded to the Dodgers. The other really big question mark or domino that we were waiting to fall was to get some more clarity on the situation with star shortstop Wander Franco, who we can now say has been arrested in the Dominican Republic. He has been in front of a judge. He was released on bail, and he is required to appear in that courtroom or appear in front of that judge once a month for at least the next 6 months while this investigation continues and could potentially go to trial. But basically what that means, even though it seemed like a foregone conclusion, is that Wander Franco will definitely not be on the opening day roster for the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah, I think the 2024 season in general, it's probably best to work under the assumption that he is not going to be in the major leagues. Now, we can also, with a lot of the reporting that's come out, that the prosecution has come out, you can have your own moral stances whether he should ever set foot in this country again. There's now a lot of more reporting, and so far it's been on the prosecution side, so you always have to take that with a grain of salt because there is going to be a defense. But in general, like that's for the court to decide, the court of public opinion and morality. That's for you to decide. So there's now actually been a lot more information. So I do encourage reading. The Athletic has some really great reporting. ESPN has actually been really fantastic leading the charge with this. They've been slow but purposeful, and I think this is a really important story. So I think it's really important to get things right rather than very quickly. And so there's been a lot more that has come out, and I encourage folks to read that and kind of learn more about the scenario. For the baseball side of things, for the Rays, that means shortstop is open. When the Rays are able to add Wander Franco to the restricted list, they will. He will go onto that restricted list. He will no longer be a 40-man roster piece. That will open up a 40-man roster spot. He will not be getting paid, I don't believe. Restricted list, you do get paid, but then you have to appear ready. So the Athletic actually had a really good legalese piece about the idea of, if you can't attend or do your side of the contract, like if you can't appear in spring training because he's attending court hearings, then you don't get paid because that's part of your contract. So all that being said, he will not be on the roster at the start of the season, probably not at all for 2024. And who knows, which means there's a ball hit to shortstop. There will not be anybody there to field it. And that is like you said, the Rube Goldberg push for that first domino to hit to the next one.
Yeah. And so the Rays, Eric Neander called up his good friend and trade partner, Jerry DiPoto, in Seattle and said, let's make a deal. And that they did. Luke Raley headed to Seattle in exchange for middle infielder Jose Caballero, a young up-and-coming middle infielder that has had some success at the big league level. And I think we can anticipate that he is penciled in as the opening day shortstop right now. And probably maybe not like the everyday shortstop in terms of he's the first name on the lineup card, but you would expect him to get more reps at shortstop than anyone else on the Rays, at least to start out. Not to say that something could happen where someone earns more playing time or the Rays decide they want to go with a guy like Junior Caminero. But first off, Darby, before we get into Caballero, I do want to talk about Luke Raley. I think you and I were both pretty big fans of his, and I wasn't expecting him to be traded. Right, this was one of those moves that, like Andrew Kittredge, and we'll get to that in a second. You could have told me he's going to be traded. I said sure. Like probably more likely.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Luke Raley, though, given how the Rays, used him last year, I was not expecting at all for him to be traded.
Raley was interesting. He was a kind of a key component on the team, a real bright spot, a breakthrough guy who kind of emerged and had a hell of a year. Raley on the season was kind of solid defensively, but like a great power threat. Had 19 home runs, 130 WRC plus, a 2.5 win season. So really, really spectacular and shockingly fast. That was always his thing. Don't know how he does it, but was basically just this weird speed demon out there, like a freight train, but a very fast freight train. Run and had a very fun highlight of that inside the park homer in San Francisco. Fun player. I think that's the real way to describe him. It's just a very fun guy, very easy to root for, and a fun story. So a little bit of a surprise of a trade there. And when that happened, there was another domino that fell, and you were like, that's interesting. What Margot is gone, and now Raley. Now the outfield's a little thin. Potentially that led to another trade. So that was thin for about an hour and a half. And then his replacement was traded for. We'll talk about that next. But yeah, I think of a very, when we complete all of these trade discussions, there is a current theme that's going through here that I think it makes sense once you see the whole picture. But yeah, Raley being traded, a little bit of a surprise. Fun player, and wish him the best of luck in Seattle, because he's basically now the Jared Kelenic replacement over there. Right. Very, very similar stat lines from last year, basically. High Ks, not as much contact, but a lot of crazy, stupid power. So interesting swapping around of similar pieces that Seattle did, and now getting basically cheaper Kelenic, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, Raley, with as great of a season as he had last year, I think moving forward, there's a lot of variance in how his next few seasons could play out. And he might turn out to be, just fine or more than fine, like he was a season ago. Maybe he's got a 30 home run season in the tank. Maybe the defense continues to improve and he can play in a lot of different spots for, Seattle or whatever team he ends up on. But there's also a chance that this was by far and away the best we would see out of Luke Raley. He is going into his age 29 season. He strikes out, he's going to strike out over 30% of the time. And if the home runs don't follow, his value takes a pretty big hit. And so the Rays, I think, see a player like that. And this was not a money-making, like a money-saving move, because Luke Raley was, not even in his ARB years yet, and neither is Jose Caballero. But what I think this is the Rays say, okay, everybody in Major League Baseball sees what Luke Raley is now. And right now he has value. He's got years of control, and he's got a big league track record. What happens, 2 years from now when Luke Raley's now in arbitration? His numbers have fallen off a cliff. Now he's got no value, and he's probably a DFA candidate. And again, I hope that doesn't happen. I would love to see Luke Raley put together a great major league career. But I think the Rays obviously saw a chance to immediately fill a position of need, because Eric Neander pretty much said it when he spoke to the media after this trade. Taylor Walls is not going to be ready for opening day. And that was kind of our fear, right? Knowing that Wander most likely wasn't going to be there. Now Taylor Walls isn't there. And if you go back to our shortstop line of succession episode from last year, you start looking at that list and you're like, is it going to be Basabe? Is it going to be Paredes? How are they going to? I mean, it can't be Curtis Mead or Jonathan Aranda. Neither of those guys can play shortstop. Carson Williams isn't ready, and I don't think from every move they've made, I don't think Junior Caminero will be on the opening day roster unless there were further injuries, which is good news for me because I hope he's with the Durham Bulls and I can go see him a lot before he gets the call up to the big leagues. But yeah, I'm sad about the Luke Raley trade because I liked watching him play, but I'm really excited with the guy they got. Like, I feel like this was great business for the Rays to get, I won't say like a big league proven shortstop because Caballero is still very young and mostly unproven, but to see a guy who's just coming off his rookie season in which he appeared in over 100 games, had a 96 WRC plus, and played some incredible defense, man, at this point in the offseason, trading just a Luke Raley to get that feels like great business for the Rays.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's a very fun trade for both teams involved. The Mariners have sort of claimed to want to get more like contact in their lineup and less swing and miss. They've now gotten Luke Raley, who has a 32% K rate and a almost 20% swinging strike rate. So that just basically takes a step back, but it does get them a nice little power bat to replace an outfield that kind of got a little thin there for them outside of Julio Rodriguez. Caballero, on the other hand, kind of exactly what the Rays needed. Last year was a 2.2 F4 player, about a 96 WRC plus, played plus defense, had a 343 on base percentage with a 10% walk rate. That's the thing that you see from him throughout the minor leagues. He's never had under a 10% walk rate. We've seen huge, big walk rates in Double-A. He had a 26% walk rate in about 134 plate appearances. He's had 10, 11, 12, 14%. And K rates, all pretty reasonable. Even last year, he had K'd at about a 23.6% rate. So really not too bad. Bit more of a pronounced splits. So maybe not exactly a guy like somebody who can absolutely pound lefties, but maybe not as great righties. High pulled ball percentage, one of the highest in kind of baseball. So there is this some interesting things looking at him under the hood. Makes a ton of contact, doesn't really swing and miss, walks a ton, so he has a really good vision, good strike zone mastery, and pulls the ball a lot. Again, hey, that sounds a lot like Isaac Paredes. You're just deciding to get another one like that. A lot of good defensive versatility, though. That's his big claim to fame. Last year he had one game in the outfield. He played third base, shortstop, and second base. Here in Tampa Bay, you're going to see, I think, mostly shortstop, but the Rays are going to use people all over the place. You could have a late game thing where you have Taylor Walls and Caballero out there improving the defense quite a bit up the middle. You could have games where you switch out and pinch hit, and then suddenly now you have him coming in to kind of take over. So tons of versatility there. Can play shortstop, can play all over the infield. Feels like a upgrade actually over a Taylor Walls and Slavis Basabe.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He sounds like everything we want Taylor Walls to be.
Yes.
Like everything that Taylor Walls, we heard that, kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none type of player, but maybe like an infield wizard. And I don't think we've seen that. I think we've seen good infield defense. But I think if you look at every one of Taylor Walls' traits that we thought he had from like an offensive profile coming up, I think Palacios, has that and does it better. I really like the walk rate because what I see Palacios as is like a really high floor option that you could get at this point of the offseason. Like you and I kicked around the idea of like, bringing in like a veteran, like we joke about Jose Iglesias all the time. Just sign one of those shortstops that is just kicking around. This feels like a better move than that because this feels like Caballero is a piece of value that you could see sticking with the club for a few years. Like, given the fact that he was just a rookie last season, this does not feel like a stopgap acquisition.
He's a absolutely perfect Rays player. He's an absolutely perfect Rays player. He'll play all over. He works good counts. Very frustrating to opposing pitchers, the way his approach is, similar in that Yandy and Paredes style, where he's up there, he's fouling off pitches, he's spitting on those close pitches, he's drawing walks, he's making contact. That's really useful. And when you can play really good defense and you can play multiple positions, you're going to probably stick around a long time with the Rays, because that's something that they value a lot more than maybe a lot of other teams. And they're going to want to see if he hits, 85, 90 WRC plus, and he's playing really good shortstop defense, they're going to be happy with that. Yeah. They want that. That's what they want. The defense is much more important than the bat. The bat, though, like you said, I think there is something there. Whether it unlocks all the way, where they kind of push him into that, Paredes like lean into those pulled fly balls, try to pull even more. Maybe you can get some home runs out of that bat with that exceptional plate vision and exceptional kind of strike zone mastery. But if not, I think he's already a pretty solid player. Like the splits were pretty dramatic. He was only 73 WRC plus against righties, 126 WRC plus against lefties. That's a big split, but I think there is still something there where the Rays will probably utilize platoons. The Rays will put people in the position to succeed. Late in the season, Caballero had kind of a down slope. He was struggling a little bit. The thing was, he was still hitting against lefties. He just was the Mariners just had to use him against all hands. Yeah. Luke Raley, on the other hand, he almost never faced a lefty at all, and down the stretch started to struggle quite a bit. So his second half was much worse than his first half, and that's facing basically only in positions of strength for him. Mm-hmm. That could be a sign, and it could have been a signal to the Rays that maybe the best of Luke Raley was what we saw last year, and there may not be much more there than that. And Caballero, maybe there's a bit more that we haven't seen yet, but at the very least, high floor, you got that guy that you can plug in a couple of different places, and allows you to be a little bit versatile as the game goes on as well.
Chad Mottola, he got a lot of praise last year, and you heard it from guys that talked about how he changed or helped change their approach going into 2023. And I think for the first time in a long time, it was like noticeable, maybe since watching like the Derek Shelton hitting coach era, which is not, I don't think is remembered too fondly.
Everyone's favorite era.
But for the first time in a while, it felt like there was a philosophy, like a team-wide philosophy on how to, attack pitches in certain counts. Everyone, like I could notice, had a little bit different approach, except for guys like Bethancourt or Jose Siri, that they're just going to strike out anyways. Right, yeah. Those guys didn't really change anything, but like guys like Yandy Diaz, he just started absolutely trying to mash those pitchers in the hitters' counts. And you take a guy like Caballero, who clearly has plate discipline and really good really good vision, and you use that to teach him not how to take pitches, but how to pounce on the pitches that he knows he can hit, like we saw Yandy Diaz do this past season, and guys like Isaac Paredes as well. And so I think there probably is something to unlock with Caballero. But ultimately, I'm really satisfied again. Like, the Wander Franco situation stinks, right? But if we look at the shortstop position, where the Rays have had, up until Wander Franco was gone, they had a lot of stability there, right? You had Willy Adames, who is turned into an above average everyday big league shortstop. You had Taylor Walls and Wander Franco right behind him. Taylor Walls, who was being called the Kevin Kiermaier of the infield, and then Wander Franco being an absolute phenom unicorn prospect. The position was in great hands then. And then Adames is traded, Walls comes up, then Franco comes up, and now Walls is hurt and maybe not that good. Franco is maybe never coming back to the organization. So you'd think, oh no, the Rays are probably screwed at shortstop right now. But they've got Caballero, And then you've got Taylor Walls once he's healthy as a true just backup shortstop, utility infielder. But and
Could be
behind
straight
them
platoon.
could be
Lefty, righty. Yeah.
Behind them, you've got like Junior Caminero, if you think he can play shortstop. You've got Oslevis Basabe, who is going to be like, I don't know. I don't have too much faith in him becoming like an everyday big leaguer, but we've seen him do it, right? Like we've seen him do it, and he wasn't terrible. And you've got Carson Williams behind them, who might be big league ready at some point this year. And so that position group organizationally is actually in a great spot. And I think if you told me at the time of the Willy Adames trade, hey, the Rays are going to go into 2024 and neither Wander Franco or Taylor Walls will be available, and you need to come up with a shortstop, you'd be like, well, they're probably screwed at that point. But I think they've done a good job there.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So you mentioned earlier that there was like the Rays have been doing a lot of like for like trades, and this wasn't like for like trades, but Luke Raley departs. And in comes from the St. Louis Cardinals, who the Rays got in exchange for Andrew Kittredge, Richie Palacios. And so we'll start with Palacios, and then we'll talk about Kittredge and kind of his impact on the team. But Darby, tell me about who the Rays got to, realistically replace Luke Raley.
Yeah, so, I mean, slots perfectly right in. He's a lefty outfielder. They traded a lefty outfielder, they got a lefty outfielder. Perfect slot right in there. Palacios is a very different bat than Raley. Raley is a high K, high swing outside of the zone, kind of free swinging, high strikeout, big power, just like redonkulous power kind of guy. Whereas Palacios, so the stat that you can kind of tell it all, right, is Luke Raley, 31.5% K rate, 7.6% walk rate, O swing at about 40.5%. So that's swinging outside of the zone about almost 50% of the time. Palacios is a 17.7% K rate, so nearly half, 11.1% walk rate last year, and a 25% O swing percentage. His swinging strike percentage is only 6%, about 5.9, which is incredibly low. He has a zone contact of over 90. That basically, when he swings, he makes contact. He doesn't swing outside of the zone. He only swings inside of the zone, and he draws a ton of walks, barely strikes out. So a very completely opposite kind of hitter, not as much power, has some power, but like very, very. Last year, he had about 9 home runs. Steamer actually projects him for about 20 he had 6 home runs last year. Steamer projects him for only 4 this next year. He's not really a home run guy. He is got decent enough speed. The bat is all about that contact and strike zone mastery. Again, similar to Yandy Diaz and similar to your Isaac Paredes, you're not going to necessarily see him light up the Savant page. Yandy has become that. He's completely transformed and become one of the best pure hitters in baseball. Paredes still, even with the 30 home run season, his Savant page still filled with blue. The Statcast ratings does not reflect the on the field talent, the batted ball data. Palacios is similar, except for when it comes to that chase rate, that O swing percentage, the walk rate, and the K rate. Those things, basically, he rarely does those things. So he has a great control of the strike zone. The key for Palacios is back to Chad Matola, right? He pulls the ball a ton. Palacios had a 45.2% pull rate. So again, one of a pretty extreme pull guy. Can he pick better pitches to do damage and swing at? And when he selects those pitches, he's clearly identifying pitches well. He has an advanced ability to command the strike zone, to know what strikes, know the types of pitches that are coming in. It's just then, what do you do with that? Are you making damage, or are you just kind of working pesky at bats? Last year, he kind of had a pretty impressive little breakthrough campaign for the Cardinals. This offseason, he's been at Driveline, and he's added a huge amount of exit velo to his bat. I think self-proclaimed he said something like 8 or 9%, like something absolutely absurd, to his max exit velo. So he's putting on a little bit of weight, putting on some muscle, trying to actively tinker and work on really boosting that top end kind of power. That is sort of the exact type of bat that I think Motolo has worked really well in. And it's interesting that the Rays have kind of leaned into this. I kind of already mentioned with Johnny DeLuca, exact same similar bat, right? Heavy pull. I think DeLuca something like 60%, 61.8%. Very low O swing percentage, 26.2%. Pretty high walk rate. And so great vision, great pull, and doesn't swing outside of the zone. Caballero, we just mentioned it. Palacios, same sort of thing. So in a lineup, the Rays could potentially have a ton of guys that have that ability of knowing what pitches are coming, fighting off the ones that they can't do damage with, and selecting the ones that they can. Josh Lowe is the interesting one to think about, because Josh Lowe actually increased his chase rate last year, increased his K rate from his rookie year, but it greatly improved his bat, because I think he was starting to swing a little bit more and trying to do a little bit more damage, rather than kind of saying like that pitch isn't good enough, this pitch isn't there. That is probably going to be the best pitch that you see. So let's try to do damage with it. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe you have to chase that, but maybe that does get you a double the other way. And so I think there is that balance where you might have a great eye. You might have the perfect plate vision, but what do you do with that? And I think Chad Motolo has shown some success with Rays hitters. Palacios is going to be a very interesting experiment to look at, because I think he's already, as is, a very fun potential breakout guy who showed some pop last year, showed a little bit of breakthrough. I think he's at least a very good fourth outfielder that can replace the Luke Raley role against righties. But they're also, like we sort of said with Caballero, there's maybe a little bit more there with DeLuca. Like there is some interesting, they've amassed some very interesting skill sets where you could see a little bit more if things click. And if not, there's a pretty high floor of, well, what they do well is still quite good.
Yeah.
But there's potentially a huge ceiling there that's left to be unlocked.
What this does to the roster, because I agree, Palacios is a very interesting player, is we've now taken on the position player side all of the reserve players, right? Because I think going into this year, almost every position now has like an everyday player. Pinto is going to be your number one catcher. Yandy Diaz at first, Brandon Lau at second, Jose Caballero at short, Isaac Paredes at third, Randy in left, Siri in center, Josh Lowe in right. Like obviously the Rays are going to platoon, but like, wow, that was really easy for me to just name who's going to be the everyday player in those positions. I don't know when the last time we've been able to say that is, but now all your reserve players, right? Your list of Curtis Mead, Jonathan Aranda, Richie Palacios, Johnny DeLuca, Harold Ramirez for now. Everyone except for Harold Ramirez has like minor league options and like was in AAA last year. So it's not like setting them down is going to be like earth shattering. Those guys can now cycle in and, okay, the Rays want to bring Palacios up. They want to have an extra outfielder. And we really like the lefty that's going to face Durham this week. So we're going to go get Curtis Mead some at-bats or Jonathan Aranda some at-bats against lefties. And they can kind of use the Durham shuttle for these position player, these reserve spots on the bench. And I like that because I'm really confident in at least 4 guys in the lineup this year. Like I know they're going to, if they're healthy, they're going to have a good season. Yandy Diaz, Brandon Lau, Randy Rosarena, and Isaac Paredes too, honestly. And you could throw Josh Lowe in the mix there, where those are players who, if they're healthy, I'm expecting a good season.
Totally.
I don't know, like we don't have to gamble as much on the other spots on the roster where, I think that was the big issue in 2021. Oh yeah, we hope that Taylor Walls and Josh Lowe and Vidal Brujan all work out because they're going to play a lot of innings for us this year. Or that was 2022. Sorry, not 2021. This year, I think we have more sure things on the lineup, which makes it really fun to play around with the rest of your lineup construction and roster construction throughout the season. So the team, I think, is a lot younger, a lot more controllable. They have options. It gives the coaching staff and the front office a lot more flexibility in how you can manage the roster throughout the season.
And it's also just that higher floor of these people have been around a few times. They've seen the postseason a few times. There's less. I think the Rays are always not shying away from the idea of variance, and variance is okay. But when you can lower some variance in the positive way, that's not a bad thing to have. So I'm really excited to see Johnny DeLuca and Richie Palacios and Jose Caballero. But what's nice is that I don't have to convince myself that I really got to hope that these guys, this is the core now. So they have 2 out of the 3 have to be impact players next year. I could see Richie Palacios being the next in the line of Cardinals outfielders that have broken through and become really good major leaguers away from St. Louis
with the Rays,
but with the Rays too. Yeah, exactly. But if he is just a 1 to 2 win kind of backup outfielder type, totally fine. Totally fine. Totally
sounds
useful.
Like Luke Raley.
Right, exactly. And that's the type of thing is you kind of need for the Rays, especially, they also do need that full 26-man roster depth. You need contributions. And that's how, when they've been really successful, when they've won 100 games, when they've won the division, it's because every day throughout the lineup, there is a good player. And it's the Rays that do tend to try to look at the maybe not stars and scrubs type of thing, where it's you have that top 4, like the Padres last year, that top 4 is legendary. Mm-hmm. And then just who cares? But that top 4, right? And we've seen that time and time again where maybe that top 4 kind of fails, and then suddenly one guy gets hurt, one guy kind of has an off season. Now that top 4 is a top 2, and the rest of the lineup just cannot come up. So with the Rays, they've lost some high-end talent, but they've also, right now, it is kind of nice that you can basically say you don't have any sucky players. You don't have any players that are just this person should not be in the major leagues. This is just a bad player. This is a, maybe this isn't a all-star. This person isn't going to be, getting all-star votes at the 7th spot, but they're pretty solid. And when in baseball, it's all a matter of not getting outs. You only have 27 of them. And so adding some of these players who draw walks, suddenly that bottom of the order, they maybe aren't as fearsome as you would normally think, or that would pop, on this, off the page. But you do look at a guy that's okay, there's a walk here. Jose Siri runs into a home run. Suddenly now your bottom of the lineup has contributed 2 runs out of nowhere. And with the Rays pitching, that can really do quite a bit. So I totally agree with you. The lineup is at about as stable as I can remember in recent years, but there is some it's fun to have these experimental players or kind of dice rolls be the bench, and the prospects that are coming up is the bench, right? I'm excited about Curtis Mead and Jonathan Aranda, but
we don't see how they're going to get in the lineup still if everyone's healthy.
To preempt, the Rays are manipulating some service time. Where do the players play? I think it's a good problem to have. And the Dodgers traded away Michael Busch to the Cubs, who has been one of the most prolific minor league hitters for the last 4 years in AAA. It's because, you can't play him at first. They have Freddie Freeman. They can't play him at second because they have Mookie Betts. Can't play him at third because you have Max Muncy. So it's these are good problems to have when you have prospects and you just can't find room because, there's a better player blocking them. So Junior Caminero is a potentially generational talent, He's just 20 and skipped AAA last year. Probably is good to go and could play. He was in the playoff roster last year. Could be a guy that opens opening day, except don't know if he can play short. Hasn't played a lot of short in recent years. A little big body as well for that.
You have two all-stars on the right side of the infield.
Yeah, you can't play second because Brandon Lau is the best power hitter on the team. Can't play first because Yandy Diaz is an all-star.
Maybe
Can't
the best hitter in the
third.
American League now. Yandy Diaz.
Silver Slugger. Isaac Paredes. Maybe you're like, I don't know if he can repeat, but like you're not pulling him from the starting lineup. Okay, maybe you go in the corner outfield. Which corner outfield do you mention? Josh Lowe, who had a breakthrough like 2020 season, or Randy Arozarena, who like it's a very fast.
It's
like
the face of the franchise, Randy Arozarena.
It's a great problem to have. It's a great problem to have. But like when Junior Caminero is in Durham to start the year, it will not be because they want to eke out an extra year of service time. It's if somebody got hurt, if Isaac Paredes, knock on wood, gets hurt early, you probably see somebody like Caminero come up, but you might also see somebody like Curtis Mead, who also he's been one of the most prolific minor league hitters, and Jonathan Aranda has been basically the Rays Michael Busch. Like he's done everything, just punishing the minor leagues. But you have Harold Ramirez, who is still on the team and not traded, and is pretty darn good. Like it's a good problem to have, right? Like we've talked about Harold Ramirez as kind of this guy we kind of want to see traded almost in a way because it opens the door for Mead or Caminero or Aranda, but you don't want to just give him away because I mean he's been a very consistently good hitter,
right,
in his Rays career.
What you just laid out to me makes me really excited to be a Durham Bulls season ticket holder next year. It sounds like the Durham Bulls might have a super team on their hands. Like you're going to have a lineup.
They usually do.
Yeah, you're going to have a lineup full of guys who have now had like big league experience that are just back in AAA, like Aslavis Basabe and Carson Williams are your shortstops. And you've got, hey, Junior Caminero, we're going to give him some innings there too. And you've got Jonathan Aranda and Curtis Mead, and your pitching staff has Taj Bradley and Shane Boz in it to start the year. And you might have
Mason Montgomery.
You might have the guy we're going to talk about in a little bit, Naoki Uwasawa, pitching down in Durham for a little bit. Like a guy that's been pitching for 10 years at a high level in the Japanese league is now pitching for the Durham Bulls. Man, I'm just excited for opening day, like hearing that starting lineup. And you're like, wow, that guy's been in the big leagues. Oh, that guy hit like 450-foot tanks last year in the big leagues, and now he's playing for the Bulls. But I'm excited. But again, great problem to have.
Great problem to have. And who knows? Maybe Mike Zunino as
maybe Mike
veteran
Zunino.
Depth at catcher. Yeah,
I just know
have a Durham Bulls Florida man night.
If Mike Zunino is on the Durham Bulls, I already know Darby's flying out here to visit me to go watch.
I'm getting my Durham jersey. Yeah, for sure. I definitely.
All right. Before we get to Uwasaka, I do want to talk about Andrew Kittredge because, wow. I mean, so he was the longest tenured Ray, pitched in 7 seasons for the Tampa Bay Rays. Think about your favorite Rays player of all time. He probably didn't play 7 seasons with the team. But Andrew Kittredge did, and he's gone now. We've seen him come back from injury, like from, surgeries. We've seen him become an American League All-Star, and now he's gone with the Cardinals, just a part of their bullpen. It makes me a little sad.
It does too. I think as a player, he was always one of my favorites. One, I'm very partial to a beard, and he always had a pretty fun beard. When he shaved, it was a nightmare because he was also was the worst pitching version of him. Weirdly, I don't know what's going on with that, but the beard was great. So every time he had the beard, it was great. Very fun pitcher, like a true like Rays development success story. Somebody who's kind of grinded it out for a number of years, coming up and down, being on the shuttle.
Last guy standing from the Taylor Motter Richie Schaefer trade.
Wow. Yes. Yeah. Because he came from Seattle, didn't he? Yeah. Kittredge has been, he was such a reliable arm and eventually a very high leverage arm. You know, one of the most fun splitters you could see. He had that heavy sink action on his fastball. Really good stuff. Really fun pitcher. Very easy to root for. His like all-star story about, you know, basically just going on vacation for the all-star break with his family and going to the Rainforest Cafe.
Yeah, the one at Animal Kingdom.
Like,
I love that Rainforest Cafe. I go there every time I'm at Animal Kingdom.
It's some great stuff. And and then suddenly he gets the call from Kevin Cash to say, like, vacation's canceled. You gotta get up to was in DC, I think. You're going to the All-Star game. And yeah, it's awesome. He was just coming back last year from another big arm injury. And when he came back, he was fairly successful. Like, the numbers were pretty good. The stuff did not look quite as sharp as he looked pre-injury, but which, you know, he just came back. So that could be something there. And St. Louis is a pretty good pitching development over there. So I think there's a good chance that he is somebody that's a really good player for them, like a really good pitcher, a high leverage guy. For the Rays, it's so tough, right? Because I'm going to be sad to see the person go. I think as a position wise, I make this trade a million times. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Palacios is under team control and really interesting player. And for the Rays, their bullpen, I trust them more than almost any other team to be able to find bullpen pieces. So when they trade pieces from the bullpen, it's always kind of exciting because, you know, that opens a spot in spring to see a guy emerge, like maybe a Birch Smith, who they're given a chance to, who has some really exciting stuff, or Colby White coming back from an injury. So
yeah, it feels
baseball move. Great person. I'm rooting for him in St. Louis for sure.
Right. It feels kind of like a desperate move from St. Louis. Like, they need proven big league pitchers.
Weird trade.
Their bullpen. Yeah. Like,
weird trade.
If St. Louis was in a good spot organizationally, they just wouldn't be getting rid of Richie Palacios. Like, I think they felt like they needed him, and maybe they did. And Kittredge still, like, should be a good pitcher this year. Should help their bullpen.
They're a crowded outfield for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe the internal metrics, and maybe Heim Bloom, who's now with them, was maybe whisper in their ear, like, Kittredge is a great person to add to your
and
pen.
if you're rebuilding, like, you'd imagine Kittredge is a good, like, clubhouse guy, bullpen guy to have, like, a veteran presence.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll see. But weird trade. I don't love that from the Cards side. It seems like a lot of risk.
It does.
But maybe the market was a little soft on Palacios.
Right. First off, we're going to get to the signing of Uwasawa to close out the show here in a little bit. But first off, had a couple listener questions. These are from Matt, who says, "You guys are the best, not another page like yours." Thank you very much, Matt, for listening. Let's get to some of your questions. So, Darby, who do you think makes the rotation? I guess the question is, like, is it 5? Is it maybe 6? Is it like 5.5, like the Rays do? They give, like, they plan it out to give
bullpen day,
right? A bullpen day, and it gives, like, Taj Bradley an extra day, but we're gonna have Eflin on his same schedule. Like, it's really hard to track the Rays rotation. But let's just say it's 5 guys for the sake of this argument, unless you really think it's going to be 6. Who are those 5?
I think it's going to be fun, especially early season with off days. But I don't think they're going to go 6-man. I think your rotation right now, my rotation, Eflin number 1, Savale number 2, Pepio number 3. I think Littell number 4, and this order can be shifted. It doesn't really matter. And then number 5, I think Taj gets it starting the season. Boz coming back from injury. I think they just want to give him a little bit more of a runway, in Durham. I could see that 5th spot, especially early in the season with a little bit more off days, could be a flex spot where you see, we've talked about Chris Davinsky and Tyler Alexander, or Tyler Alexander. that's a spot where you could maybe get a little flexible with not necessarily a true start, but like a 3 inning plus. Sean Armstrong, Chris Davinsky kind of piggyback, and that's like your 6 innings. I could see that, but I also say Taj Bradley to start the season and as the top 5.
I'll go. Yeah, I'll go Eflin, Savale, who else in our rotation? Littell, Pepio, and then I'm going to go with Uwasawa to start the year. And maybe they work him into more of the bullpen role once you're more confident in Bradley or Boz, or, Springs or Rasmussen come back into the mix. But maybe Uwasawa's not starting, but I think he's getting bulk innings every 5th day to start the year. Or at least, like maybe they pair him with a Davinsky or an Alexander. Maybe Alexander and Uwasawa. I don't know.
Lefty, righty, all command, all
and
bendy.
all just really bendy stuff.
Day.
That would be
that's a frustrating batting day. Yeah.
So I'll go with that smorgasbord of basically we'll throw Davinsky in with the lefties. He's just another lefty.
He is. He is.
But
that Oliver Drake thing going. Yeah.
I think they're in a really good spot now after the Uwasawa signing. We'll talk more about that in a second. To just get Bradley and Boz like comfortable. Because I still think that Bradley is nowhere near the finished product, but I still really like what we saw out of him last year. Boz,
one of the best fastballs by Stuff Plus in all of baseball. Like Bradley has a elite pitch in that fastball. His secondaries aren't terrible. I just think he's extremely young,
right?
And he got thrown to the fire a bit, but like that experience is going to be very helpful because he is shockingly more polished than he should be at his age. So I'm pretty high on him as well.
Like, do you remember how controversial Blake Snell was before he won a Cy Young?
Or Chris Archer,
right?
Chris Archer, yeah. But he didn't win a Cy Young, but yeah.
We want these pitchers to be so just like polished right out of the gate. And, the only one, it was probably David Price for the Rays, and he's the best pitcher they've ever had.
And what a 3-year starter in Vanderbilt, so or 2-year starter at least.
He was grown man,
more of a grown adult. Yeah,
in 2008, like when he I know that was the big story is this young pitcher like David Price. He'd been there, done that by the time he pitched in the ALCS.
Now in the postseason, you got the Phillies are throwing up like Orion Kerkering, who's like 20 and skipped all of the minors or whatever. Yeah, so it's like it's a different world. It's a different world for those young guys.
This next question, I'm surprised that we haven't talked about this already, or we didn't put it on the agenda for the show. There are rumors that the Rays,
weirdly persistent rumors.
Yeah, weirdly persistent rumors from no one reputable yet.
Nope, still none. Yeah,
but that Yasiel, someone was already saying, Yasiel Puig is on the Rays. He got an
minor league deal
with an invite spring training. And I have no reason to believe that like this is smoke, and when there's smoke, there's fire. I don't know if it's clear that there's some interest from the Rays and some interest from the Puig camp, and that maybe it's not official yet, but I'm starting to think Yasiel Puig is going to be in spring training.
It feels so. The first time it came out, there was a couple of reports that Puig signed a minor league deal. He's been lighting up the Dominican League. Right now he's got like 14 home runs, something like that, like absurd power outage over there. Like his agent, maybe I think it was his agent or unagent was like tweeting about it, and that was like weird. And then eventually like a reporter, an actual reporter who covers Dominican baseball, was basically like there's nothing here. And so it's like, okay, weird. That's weird, but okay. Then like last week there was another report that Puig was going to sign a minor league deal, which is like, why was there? It's such a weird rumor with such low stakes and so inconsequential that why would this have this much smoke there?
Right.
Because it's like not like a big trade, and it's not like if you get this right, nobody's going to be like, oh, that person. It's not like MLB nerds, calling the like Pepio for Glass now trade. This is like, it'd be like, I mean, sure, the Rays say they'd love to sign random people for minor league deals, and it's a minor league deal. Like, and there's no like this player signs minor league deal with this team that I'd be like, impossible.
Yeah,
absolutely not. Unless it's like I don't know, like again, like a Trevor Bauer type where there's like a huge cloud of suspicion currently. It's like any player, you know, like if they were like Julio Franco is back in the majors at like age 57 or 9 or 60 or whatever he is, and it's like, yeah, maybe I could see it.
He'd be a better hitter than Austin Hedges, I think.
Yes, I don't think he'd be as good as catcher, but he definitely, I think he'd give him a run for hitting. That's enough smoke that I'm like, kind of. It seems like a thing that maybe has been agreed to that is not like that hasn't been.
But maybe his agents are still looking for a major league deal. If there's one, like that would kind of like explain that.
That could be it.
He's got a minor league deal with an invite to camp, and his agency is saying no, it's actually not done yet. If anybody wants to call dibs,
the Rays are super smart, so they want him in. Maybe you should just give him a major league deal because this smart team over there, you don't want them.
They're price checking.
You want them getting
a free agent.
A minor league Jamaican free agent who's been on a walkabout for 3 years out of the majors.
Because I could see like maybe they're like, Yankees, don't you want another outfielder in case one of your guys gets hurt?
Why not? I mean, Mariners. Throw him out there.
Okay, but this does feel
they
like
got Mitch Haniger. They got Mitch Haniger. So that's
if this were to happen, this feels very Andrew Friedman. Like this feels like a move that would happen in the like. Do you remember like the parade of veterans that came through and maybe took their last, big league at bats in a Rays uniform? I think of guys like
Manny Ramirez,
Hideki Matsui. Obviously, Johnny Damon worked out for the year. Like he was a good player for that year. I don't know if it was still Friedman at this point. I think it was probably after. It was probably the Silverman era. Like Grady Sizemore showed up for a little bit. It was decent for the Rays.
Last little gasp there.
It feels like this. And again, Yasiel Puig, I know there's some off the field allegations and issues, legal issues he's had that are very serious. And I do wonder if also the Rays are trying to hold off on the timing of news breaking about a signing like this with everything that's happening with Wander Franco. It would be like, because these rumors started when the Wander Franco stuff started heating up. And that would be very bad PR. Like, here's a guy who's had some domestic, incidents that have been looked into police. Here is who we're going to.
One guy's going to prison. One guy just avoided prison. Yeah.
Again, like I don't know the exact details of all the allegations against Yasiel Puig. It's definitely something that I would hope the Rays would look into before making a decision like this. But speaking about who he was as a player, I don't think he's that player anymore. But man, during his big league career, there were you got these little glimpses into greatness inside Yasiel Puig's bat.
There's a reason why like 66 is one of the most popular numbers for Cuban players to pick. Like Randy would have been 66 had it not been retired by the Rays,
right?
As Zimmer's number. He chose 56 because it's basically right there. Puig is a icon in Cuba and was a huge impact like player. I mean, like he had a run there that was incredible. I don't know if he can. There is a attached with him. From all reports in Japan, he conducted himself professionally and was a good teammate. There was a lot of the other side of the maybe the less serious, but like for team thing was there was all this rumors in LA of him being like a very destructive and like controversial teammate. That seemed to not be the case, at least in Japan. Maybe he gets humbled or whatnot, but it feels like a very Rays move, but kind of more like an old Rays move.
Right.
Like you said, like, and it does feel like a previous, like a Hank Blaylock signing.
Oh yeah.
Gabe Kapler and Gabe Gross, like weirdly old, but like, we'll try it out. Why not? And it's low risk if it's a minor league deal, but it is more low. It's higher risk than you'd maybe want for a player of his caliber still with potential baggage. Like it is a question, right? Do you want to invoke headlines and scrutiny, and what's your reward for that?
Yeah.
As a player, I don't know if Eric Neander is as comfortable with that as like Andrew Friedman has always been comfortable with that. He is signed and traded for like people who have had not only serious allegations, in Josh Lukey's case, serious conviction, and Matt Bush, serious conviction. And Matt Bush is still getting jobs after continually committing illegal acts and getting into legal trouble. So there are second chances in baseball for, depending upon your crimes and your actions. The modern game is, I think, a little less forgiving on that. And I don't know. It's a very, as a player though, it's also, I get it from a Rays standpoint, because like it's a minor league outfielder. If he can pop, then like, cool. You now have a free like Yasiel Puig. But again, where does he play? Like, you can't even get your good prospects into game action. So why are you giving a 34-year-old like chances? But maybe for Durham, maybe for the Durham crowd, get Puig and Caro, and
man, that would be.
He would hit the bull. He would hit the bull a few times. He would be swinging high for that bull.
I would be interested to see him play for the Bulls. I think that would be a show. And I wouldn't mind having tickets to that show. Okay, let's wrap up the show here. There was one other, again, really, really unique signing. Naoki Uwasawa signed. He was a 11-year pro in the NPB, playing for the Nippon Ham Fighters. Minor league deal, invite to spring training, with guarantees, if he makes the big leagues, to up to $3.5 million in salary. A very interesting contract from a guy who, by all reports, had multiple major league contract offers, including one with a sweetener from the Angels. And he still picked the Rays, who were offering him a minor league deal with an invite to spring training. Now, some people might be theorizing that the Rays are just kind of juggling those open roster spots right now, and that there's like a handshake agreement between the Rays and Uwasawa to have him on the big league roster. Right. But even then, like, even if you think Uwasawa was a big league pitcher, it's not a signing I'm shocked that the Rays are making, but I wasn't really expecting it, given they've already brought in guys like Davinsky and Tyler Alexander. Yeah. But what are your thoughts on the Uwasawa signing?
I was so kind of surprised. Again, I shouldn't be, Danny, if you're listening. Yeah. I did read the articles. We were prepared that the Rays were searching at him and looking at him, and he was an option. So I'm not going to say I was completely shocked, but it did kind of come out of left field, because all of the reports, especially from the folks I follow that kind of cover the Nippon leagues, seem to be that like he's probably gonna stick around and kind of not sign and like stick around in Japan for another year. Yeah. It seemed that like he was kind of searching around for offers and in the posting window, and then just seemed like maybe there wasn't enough there. Like the cavalcade of teams that were interested in him was it was like pick like the 6 most random teams you can get. And it was like the Angels, Rays. It's like, what's happening here with these, like, what's going on? And it was one of those things where you're like, okay, maybe he's just seeing the interest was not quite as high. There was clearly enough there. And I think it's very fun signing, because it's the Rays betting on a guy with interesting stuff. It is not loud and flashy stuff. He has a very low velo fastball, and that I think scared away. That like probably eliminated like 20 teams right off the bat. Like he is a guy that maybe can top out at like 92, sitting more in the 89-90 range from the reports I've seen. And this is after going to Driveline last year in Seattle. And he still didn't really gain velo. So that's an interesting thing there. But he is a tinkerer, and the Rays love a tinkerer. And
Right.
what a perfect marriage there. Now, the Angels offer him apparently, major league deal and hotel suites on the road and whatnot. But after Ohtani, let's be honest, what Japanese player is going to want to go sign up for the Angel experience? Like that is a fascinating potential problem that they have going forward. Is you kind of wasted and squandered an icon of a country, and how are you going to convince other people that you're like a serious organization?
The Angels have a lot of issues moving forward.
They have a lot of issues. Now with Uwasawa, I love this signing, whether it's an agreed upon, like it is going to be a major league, like you said, or if it's still a minor league. What I love about this deal is this is clearly, and from his report, his own like words, was he was picking the Rays because of their reputation, because of their pitching development, because of what they do as an organization. And that reputation spreading across the globe is a really good sign. And Rays fans should be very excited, because this is a guy who, he's not Yamamoto, nowhere close. He's not Roki Sasaki, nowhere close. But he has been a very consistently good pitcher in Japan. He is a guy who had interest, and he picked out of all these teams more sure money to go to the Rays because he's betting on himself to get to that next level. And I like pitchers that are like that are tinkerers, that like to kind of hone in on the craft. And I'm excited about him potentially getting with Kyle Snyder and the Rays and kind of like being open. Him going to Driveline kind of shows that he's ready to learn stuff. He's not somebody that's coming in with this high ego, like what I did worked for years. He's been pitching tons and tons of innings in Japan. So you could totally be like, hey, I'm clearly successful at what I do. I don't need to like reinvent. He's somebody that will reinvent. I got these numbers from Yahoo Cosmopolitan, who was a really good follow on Twitter for Japanese baseball. He also has a YouTube channel, has a bunch of great videos about Japanese baseball players. So definitely check those out. He had one that covered a couple of different players that were posted this year, including Uwasawa. And he had this graph. Suspeda's Family Barbecue just also reposted it. But basically his pitch usage and it's wild. So he has a four-seam fastball he threw about 40.8% of the time, a curveball at 14% of the time, a forkball, which has been kind of his 1+ pitch, at 13% of the time, a slider at 13% of the time, a cutter at 10% of the time, a changeup at 6.1% of the time, and a two-seam fastball at 3% of the time. That's 7 pitches, tons of pitches, huge guy that loves to tinker. I think it's a match made in heaven. It's a fun risk, and totally a perfect, what a perfect team to go to, especially because you have Saris wondering, like, is he going to be used in the bullpen, maybe like Sharn Armstrong, or maybe like that Colin McHugh role of like multi-inning three inning guy who can maybe up some velo a little bit coming out of the pen, up the spin rate? Or is he going to be like you were maybe even saying, like maybe he's their 6th starter? I'm excited. Like, how do you think the Rays are going to use Uwasawa?
I think he's going to be a starter. Like, I think he's going to be in the rotation. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming he's open to, and this would probably be part of their discussions, being a bulk pitcher, or maybe a quote unquote opener that he goes one time through the order, and then they mixes with a Davinsky or an Alexander, or like Zach Littell. Like, is Zach Littell 100% going to be a starter the entire season? I don't think so. Like, he'll be a big innings jump for him. The Rays have to be kind of creative with his usage too. And so I think they need these innings from a guy who has thrown like over 1,300 professional innings, and I think had one shoulder injury. Like, this is a guy with a great track record of health, which is more than what the Rays can say about any of their pitchers. Like honestly, and so you would bring this guy in because he's reliable. It reminds me of in terms of profile and kind of where they're at in their career. Even though this one didn't work out, this one was a pretty big failure. But it reminds me of like bringing in Rich Hill.
Not so much a failure from performance though.
Yeah, and
he was pretty solid. Just a little grumpy, maybe.
Right.
Maybe a little grumpy old man.
Right.
It also could just be his resting face, though. He also does have.
Yeah, but I mean, Uwasawa again. Like, I don't follow the NPB enough to know about like who he is. Like, is he going to fit in the clubhouse? But it seems like this guy is a hard worker. He's excited to join the Rays. Like you would expect him to come over here and embrace it. And yeah, like the more I think about it, the more I like the signing, because we have a lot of pitching depth, but again, like in terms of starting pitchers that are sure things, it's like Eflin and Savale. And then it's like, ooh, is Taj Bradley going to be good yet? Is Littell going to actually be a starter? Is Boz healthy?
And Alexander suddenly stretch? Yeah.
Right. Sean Armstrong, are we moving on to Sean Armstrong as the starter now?
Right.
So this does add some more like reliability. Never pitched in the big leagues. Like some guys, like you look at a pitcher, like a left-handed pitcher with, again, a somewhat similar profile. Yusei Kikuchi has had some stretches where he's very successful in the big leagues. He's had some stretches where he was the worst pitcher in the big leagues that still had a job. And so Uwasawa, I'm not saying he's going to come over here and be great, but I think there is that like, okay, this guy has been a starter at a professional level for a decade. He will be fine in our pitching staff.
I think that's a good point about like the just the innings. It's nice to have somebody who at least had mileage on his arm enough that he would not be uncomfortable throwing 5 or 6 innings every 5th or 6th day. I'm very excited about this signing because I don't think the Rays sold themselves in a way that like, I think Uwasawa is picking the Rays as like this sign that like he's ready to get weird with it. And I think that's what's fun. Like he's a guy that has 7 pitches. He's changed his usage all over the place. He's gone to drive line. He's excited about going to the Rays. I think this is a guy that's like opener, bulk, middle,
I'll get a save,
starter. He's gonna get a save. Yeah, he's gonna do the tour of the whole like pitching like location. I think I think there is a part of the Rays way is the kind of humanity side, and it is treating people with respect, great open communication,
getting beers with your
pitching coach after you get traded. Yeah, Tyler Glasnow was just chatting with it on the Rose rotation. He was saying, it's like the Rays are awesome because they just like they care about people. Like you talk to them about like, hey, we're gonna make this trade, but you're gonna be great. Andrew Friedman's gonna take care of you. The Dodgers are awesome. You're gonna do great there. We think you're gonna have a great success. That's the type of thing that I think Uwasawa being open to that. I don't think every pitcher is open to that, and I think the Rays are also really good at identifying who might be open to these things. We talked about Littell as a guy who they talked to and chatted with, and this was not him moving into the rotation was not a, I don't know, hey, Zach, you there? We got to get you 5 innings. Like we're desperate here. Like whoever just came in from the shower first, they're going to be like, you're going 5 tomorrow. They were chatting with him being like, we've been using you kind of like in extended innings. We think your profile can work in this role. Do you want, like, is this something you feel comfortable with? And they've gone, and other teams kind of fail with this. In the postseason, the Yankees tried miserably and failed miserably to have an opener with Devi Garcia and then switching into Jay Happ.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Happ afterwards basically said, like, I hate the way this worked. I didn't feel comfortable doing it. I said it before, and I take no responsibility for like this. Like this was I was set up to fail. Basically, is what he said. And I will say, like that is exactly how you don't do it. You can't just do the things the Rays do and weird stuff, and it just automatically works. It takes buy-in. So when you have a pitcher like Max Scherzer, like will not want to come to Tampa Bay because he doesn't like all this weird stuff, even though he probably wouldn't be asked to do any of that stuff. He still has that like kind of mentality. Whereas I think with Uwasawa, you see a guy that I think is ready to be like, okay, let's try some stuff. My stuff is not going to be 99 miles an hour. I can't just overpower people. I have to be, he's a command ace. He's so good at command. He can put the pitches where they need to go. So you tie that to this team and say, okay, you can spin it. Let's try to increase that. You have 7 pitches. Clearly they can't all be that good. So let's stop throwing some of them. And let's focus on the ones like that forkball, which is really good, that splitter. Let's also look at, hey, Zach Littell had a really good splitter and a bunch of other okay pitches. We were able to mix that usage, and he became a really successful starter down the stretch. We can do the same sort of thing here. And that's the sort of pitch. Like the Rays are like, we can't pay you the most money. We definitely can't necessarily just like compete on the open market in terms of like, I can guarantee you're going to be the 4th starter. We're never going to pull you after 5 innings. We're never going to do any crazy stuff because they don't want to do that. They don't want to necessarily have that with a guy like Uwasawa. Like he is a question mark, but the Rays are going to basically do weird stuff to probably make sure that he's in a position to get the most out of him. Mm-hmm. And that is the key, is that it's not just the analytics and the Excel spreadsheets and all of that. It's knowing the players, getting with them, working with them, and getting them to buy in. And I think Uwasawa sort of showed already with both selecting the Rays, going to Driveline, and his career in Japan of just constantly tinkering, that I think he is set up at least the best he can be for success. Whether he doesn't, we'll see. But I'm excited to see his bet on himself and on that ability to try to max out his potential with not the flashiest, exciting like Shane Baz, Shane McClanahan, Tyler Glasnow level like plus stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about it, and I feel like we're not done now. Like, I feel like even though like, hey, there's been a lot of like Uwasawa, coming in for when Kittredge leaves, and not that they'll be the same role, but like we just said,
it's a pitcher role. Yeah,
Kittredge did a lot of different roles. He opened, he was the bulk, he was a closer, he did everything during his time here. In Uwasawa, I think we're going to see some interesting things. But yeah, still maybe, the Rays, one other really small move that I'll just mention, Rob Brantley, spring training invite. I'm not excited about that. Like, I hope that's not the only catcher.
World Series, here we come. That's it. That's
I expect to see like at least one other, name with big league experience to get a non-roster invite, and
you're going to need it for pitchers and catchers, right? You're just, at least for backlots, you need like bring in another guy, like another Rob Brantley type.
Right. Which again, I don't know. I've been asking for someone better than Rob Brantley. So maybe, I don't know. I probably just shouldn't get my hopes up.
What you mentioned though about like this may not mean that they're done. And I think after the Glasnow trade, we kind of mentioned like that's kind of like the big move that they needed to do. The roster's kind of set,
but then we've kept making moves.
But the Rays tinker. So I think there is that idea of like, okay, maybe like I think the Luke Raley trade sort of does open the door of like you could see like Taylor Walls out for like another utility guy, or you could see like a Colin Poche for the right-handed Colin Poche.
Yeah, Taylor Walls
that,
would fit in
on kind of small weird moves.
Taylor Walls should be like a Kansas City Royal. I think that's where Taylor Walls, like, he could fit in there, like be Bobby Witt's understudy, and then fill in on the infield there. Some familiarity with Matt Quatraro.
Kind of, he could pop into third when Maikel Franco is a little bit tired. Yeah, no, I can see that.
Maikel Garcia.
Give Bobby Witt a day off his feet. Maikel Garcia. Maikel Franco. Yeah. What the hell is that? Maikel Garcia.
He used to play for the Royals at third base.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Different player altogether. Yeah, I could see that, like, kind of popping around. He does feel he feels like he would. Yeah.
Well, 2 of his former coaches
look good in that,
are there.
In that blue.
He would.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always feel like
There you
Royals.
go. 4. Okay, let's spin the wheel. Oh, Freddie Freeman. There you go.
Oh,
Catcher. There you go.
We have
heard it here first. You heard it here first.
Darby, Freddie Fermin, for me, I don't know how to say his last name.
Fermin,
Fermin,
I think maybe.
He's Venezuelan, I think.
Fremen.
And that would be like the trade I've kind of been asking for. I think he's good. I don't know how good yet because obviously he's sharing playing time with Salvador Perez, so we haven't really got to see him for an extended period of time. But yeah,
and MJ Melendez. They've the Royals have three people that like can kind of be catchers, but two
MJ
of them
Melendez
don't really want to be at catcher.
Yeah, MJ Melendez should not be at catcher.
Neither should Sal Perez.
MJ Melendez should not be anywhere on the field. But the Royals have kind of dug themselves into that hole. They still have some interesting pieces. We don't need to go through the whole Royals depth chart, but
for me, it would be very fun.
Yeah. Okay.
Cooper Hummel is another one. I just want to throw that out there on this so that if the Rays were linked to him like many years ago,
they have a really good pitcher I'd like to.
Outfield catcher. So like if he just got designated for assignment, so like if he comes up, we're gonna cut this section of the podcast and make it a YouTube short.
Carlos Hernandez is the Venezuelan pitcher that I want from the Royals.
Very fun twosome.
Yeah. So even though we weren't really expecting many moves after Glasnow's traded, we've seen 2 more trades, a pretty sizable free agent signing, Uwasawa. I consider that notable. And maybe bringing Yasiel Puig on board. Like,
yeah.
Neander, maybe he doesn't have, Bendix like in his ear anymore, telling him to not do trades. Maybe Neander's free again, and he is just wheeling and dealing. He's going back. He's calling his old buddies. He's like, Jerry, we got to make a trade. It's been too long. Let's make this happen.
Jerry's ready. He's like,
Jerry's like, of course.
You never ask.
So you call your old buddy and you say, hey, like,
son of a bitch, I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. So now I'm thinking like, ooh, who's going to be traded tomorrow? It could be anyone. I don't know. Anything could happen, which we're like January, February is when the Rays make their weirdest moves. Like they're not doing it at the winter meetings. Just wait. Like they'll keep them in store and then, oh, wow, he just got traded. I thought he was going to be their starting right fielder. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it should be some good stuff. I think Harold Ramirez is the next name to look for. I think there's been enough talk of Harold Ramirez being shopped that I think that's going to happen.
I think eventually they might end up with very little in return. I think they've kind of showed their hand with Harold Ramirez.
I think they're ready to kind of have a minor, like the international money or something like that, like low level pitching prospect who's maybe a little too old for that age or whose arm exploded recently. That's
the Rays will take him.
Yeah. No arm, you say? Jim Abbott did it. I think we can figure this out. We'll work it out. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. I think this is a good time to end the show. We've gone off the rails a little bit, but we talked a lot. Like there was so much news to go over, and hopefully it won't be like 3 weeks from the next time we record and the stadium deal has fallen through and they're relocating to Nashville. But yeah, there's been a lot of news, and hopefully we can get into some other fun episodes. Like maybe we talked about it before we started recording, but like Marvel's What If we do, we look back at some old scenarios in Rays history. What if this had happened? I think that would be fun. And I think that would be fun to get some of our good friends at D-Rays Bay to join us for some of those episodes. I'd love to hear. I want to hear what Ian could cook up for a What If Rays, or
Ian and Adam.
I
think Adam could have some real good ones.
He would be going back to like, if we didn't trade this middle reliever in 2001, we would have ended up with this draft pick and taken someone.
What if DeJuan Brazelton didn't implode?
Yeah. Exactly. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Raise Your Voice. Thank you to everyone for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to drop a like on this video, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications for whenever we go live or we publish a new video. If you're listening to this as a podcast, if you could rate and review this podcast as well as download it so every new episode or subscribe to it so every new episode is downloaded directly to your device. Follow D-Rays Bay on Twitter. We go live on there as well, or on X, as I should say. And as always, head on over to draysbay.com for all of the great Rays coverage. Once again, thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you next week.